This line from Chairman Eric Blank, this quote, I think, is going to live in perpetuity because I'm going to make sure that it does. He says, "It doesn't feel right to me. I treat customer money like it's my own. I'm looking for a little certainty that we are not going to deeply regret this." Newsflash, you are going to deeply regret this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of PowerGab, your go-to show for all things energy and environmental policy here in the state of Colorado. I'm Jake Fogleman, joined as always by my co-host Amy Cooke. On this week's show, we wanted to provide a little bit of an update on a topic that we have broached several times on this program, and that is the near-term procurement is the official title it's been given. That's just a fancy speak for saying when the P.U.C. allowed Xcel to sort of fast track the resource procurement process, looking for new generation projects, all because of the One Big Beautiful Bill being signed into law, which of course included a phase out of the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits for renewable energy projects. So Xcel went into a rush and said, P.U.C, please, we want to help you meet your renewables goals. But to do that, you have to let us go super fast and streamline all these processes and ram through a bunch of bids. That way we can get all the tax credits and everyone will be hunky-dory. We can meet the climate goals and we'll save money and la-di-da. Well, we have the ultimate decision, at least of the first phase of that near-term procurement as of this week from the P.U.C. Surprise, surprise, the P.U.C. went ahead and gave them the green light to build a whole bunch of more wind, solar, and batteries, and some other resources as well that we'll probably get into. Not quite as much as Xcel was looking for, but still several gigawatts worth of new renewables, all in the interest of harvesting tax subsidies.
I got to tell you, Jake, after reading this, and of course, we're reading an article by Mark Jaffe, who we've commended before. I mean, Mark at least knows the Public Utilities Commission. He's with the Colorado Sun now. I knew him before. I think he was with the Denver Post. He may have even been with the Rocky Mountain News at one point, but he knows the Public Utilities Commission. So when he writes something about the Public Utilities Commission, it's certainly for us well worth reading. The decision came out right up ahead of time, just before we started taping this, and Jake, of course, is a speed reader, so probably has it footnoted by now. But a couple of things on this. I just want to start with the very beginning of this article from Mark Jaffe, and it literally, this is the first line. It says, aiming to get energy generation and storage projects started before federal tax credits expire. So I just want to highlight that first, and this is it's a clause, right? It's a clause of the first sentence. The Colorado Public Utilities Commission approved an expedited list of 1.7 megawatts, 1,700 megawatts, 1.7 gigawatts of projects for Xcel Energy, but they're rushing to get it in ahead of the expiration of the tax credits. And plug to my colleagues at Always On Energy Research, the reason why it's not 2029 and it's 2028 is because of the chart that they did that showed how often these credits that were supposed to be temporary have been renewed, and it's over 30. I think or like something like over 32 years they've been extended just numerous times. We can't quite wean ourselves off of this. But here's the first thing. So Xcel Energy is expediting this process, and with the blessing of the state of Colorado, of course, because why? Because they have relied on the federal government for their energy plan. And the fact that they've actually thrown the sort of energy destiny of Coloradans into the clutches of the federal government is absolutely the height of irresponsible governance. These people, all of them, should be punished severely because we Coloradans now will have to pay for horrific decisions made because they thought relying on the federal government was a great idea. You want to know about relying on the federal government? Well, tell you what, go ask Katrina survivors what it was like relying on any government, but especially, talk about the feds, but any government. The problem with this is all of these tax credits are going to expire, and that's how their math penciled out. And without them, first of all, they're more expensive anyway. 1.7 gigawatts of solar, wind, batteries, that combo is going to cost you, let's say it's $1 billion to $2 billion, and you might be able to power 100,000 homes with it. You could build a 1 gigawatt natural gas plant and power 10 times the number of homes. This is going to be wildly expensive, and we've been thrown into the clutches of the federal government, and it's not going to work. And this line from Chairman Eric Blank, this quote, I think, is going to live in perpetuity, because I'm going to make sure that it does. He says, "It doesn't feel right to me." Good. Well, if that's what it's telling you, if that's what your instincts say, you should probably rethink your decision. Then he said, "I treat customer money like it's my own." Well, I wish you'd do a little bit more of that. But then he said, "I'm looking for a little certainty that we are not going to deeply regret this." Newsflash. You are going to deeply regret this, and you're going to regret it for a very, very long time, because I'm going to write the history of it, and I'm going to make sure every person is up there, because when our electricity bills, when our utility rates go up, when they start looking like California rates, when we are normalizing blackouts and we're paying 3, 4, 5 times more, I'm going to make sure everybody remembers who did it and who made these decisions. There are better ways to do this. We all know this, but this state is on a trajectory that it refuses to back away from. And they kept saying it was going to be cheaper. We now know that renewables are not cheaper, and they're not going to be, even if they had the subsidies, they're not going to be. But the fact is they're not. But we're still going forward with something that is wildly expensive and is going to be unreliable. Absolutely. This is a horrific decision for Coloradans.
That quote that you highlighted from P.U.C. Chair Eric Blank, I think gets to the heart of this. First of all, he's sort of been on a tear lately of similar sentiments in all of these proceedings, where he suddenly gets his hackles up a little bit whenever they're considering a new policy, a new rulemaking or a new decision in ERP. He's like, "Oh boy, these costs are getting a little crazy," or "Oh boy, the resource adequacy is looking a little tough. I don't know if I'm for this anymore." So kudos to him for at least being one of the commissioners willing to say this out loud. But I think this sentiment in this particular proceeding speaks to why we beat up so much on making major billion-dollar infrastructure decisions based on chasing subsidies, right? It's not because you and I are just mean and tightwads and we don't want, cheap electricity, the way it's painted by, the proponents of this stuff. This is all about saving people money with these great tax credits. No, this was a thing deliberately used to chase federal money. First of all, the line that we always use is, subsidies don't actually change the economics of a given project. They just shift around who pays for it. So lucky family out in Mississippi or a lucky family in North Dakota get to help pay for the wind and solar projects being built in Colorado. So hooray for them. Sorry that you have to do that. But it also kind of clouds the normal judgment and way of things, right? This is all done in a expedited procurement process. And that's where some of his trepidation comes from, where he's saying, "I'm looking for a little more certainty in this. I'm seeing these really high bids despite the subsidies. A lot of these projects are looking really pricey, and we don't have time to do, adequate modeling to make sure it's really in the customer's interest." We beat up a lot on the P.U.C. and how much of a slog it can be sometimes with all the regulations and rules. But at the end of the day, fundamentally, their job is, because they're dealing with a monopoly utility, part of that bargain is they scrutinize every little investment that the utility is going to make sure that it is a prudent investment and that it results in just and reasonable electricity prices. At least in theory, that's what they're supposed to do. And when you're truncating that entire process because Xcel says, oh, we got to go now. We have to do it right now. And you have to say yes to everything we want to build right now. Otherwise, we won't get these great tax credits. And please, it puts a lot of pressure on these folks to say, okay, you're telling me this, but we have to put faith in you, the monopoly utility, that what you're saying is really in the interest of the customers and not in the interest of you, one, capturing tax credits, but two, padding your rate base and earning a bigger profit from it. And it's just, it's not, like you said, it's not a sensible way to do energy policy, making massive, major billion-dollar, decade-long, tail decisions, all because you're chasing federal tax goodies and not because you're chasing, what's the best for the customers of Colorado, the infrastructure of Colorado, and the energy needs of Colorado.
And I'd like to compare this, Jake, to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and it was what a bill that the Colorado Springs utility is putting forward, because they were the first ones to say this out loud as a utility. Of course, Colorado Springs Utility is the second largest utility in Colorado, and they're municipally owned. So it's taxpayers of Colorado Springs that own it. And if you remember, first of all, they need to keep Ray D. Nixon online, which they have done. But the other thing is they have asked the legislature in a bill that we talked to with Sarah Montalbano when she was on the show previewing the legislative session. What is it? I think it's Senate Bill 30, and I could be wrong on that. But the point of it is that they need an off-ramp, because they have seen these costs for wind and solar. And they said, we can't shut down Ray Nixon or any other dispatchable unit that we have without reliable replacement. And they said, right now, those replacements of wind and solar are too expensive to the ratepayers of Colorado Springs utility. They're saying they can't afford it. And the difference is Colorado Springs Utilities, it's municipal owned, so it's the taxpayers. Xcel Energy is investor owned, and they socialize those costs just like Colorado Springs does, but it's across all ratepayers who really, in this case, have very little say. You can show up at a city council meeting in Colorado Springs and scream about your utility because, by the way, the council members are part of the Colorado Springs Utility Board. Here, you're removed, right? I mean, you've got the Utilities Consumer Board, you have the P.U.C. They're supposedly watchdogs for ratepayers, but they're really, the UCB may be a little bit more, but the P.U.C. is really about, it's about maintaining an agenda, moving forward with an agenda that is to eliminate firm dispatchable baseload units that are powered by fossil fuels and replace them with wind, solar, and batteries, because that's what Jared Polis wanted. The way they have they have taken away some of the authority of the P.U.C. in some cases, because of the way they have restructured the regulatory agencies. And the P.U.C. isn't just captive by regulator. It isn't just regulatory capture by utilities. It's also regulatory capture by the governor. This is the governor's hands are all over this. And he specifically put in place people that would approve his agenda and not make waves. He has, as he abided by the letter of the law regarding the PUC, yes. By the spirit of it, no. These are three commissioners that, at the end of the day, are going to do everything they can, especially Gilman and Plant, to advance this all renewables at any cost. It is viewing energy policy only through the very narrow and myopic lens of emissions only at point of generation, as opposed to looking at it holistically with reliability and affordability and what it's going to do to ratepayers. So here's the difference. So you have the Colorado Springs Utility openly saying, we can't do this. It's going to cost our ratepayers way too much, and they're asking for relief from the legislature. Then you have Xcel going to the PUC, say, we got to rush this, let's speed it up, because we've got to get ahead of the tax credits. We've got to get as much as we can. And you have Chairman Blank, who, again, maybe he's blinking SOS again, saying, I hope this isn't something we deeply regret. If you say that out loud, maybe we should stop.
Yeah.
Maybe if the chairman of the PUC is saying that out loud, maybe we should just slow down, just stop for a minute and think this through and get all the analysis you need. Because as he said, will this be a decision we deeply regret? You're talking about a huge amount of money on ratepayers for irresponsible, just decision making, and it's with ineffective, inefficient, unreliable power. Yes, they're going to deeply regret it, and they're going to regret it for a long time. And the people who are going to regret it the most are those of us who have to pay these bills.
It's worth, on that point, reminding folks that this isn't just like their typical every 3-year ERP that they file to kind of update their load projections and standard. This was a special, unique proceeding tacked on to their 2021 ERP that they could get, an extra few gigawatts of power in the door. We still are awaiting the bids that are going to come through for the so-called just transition solicitation, which is the monstrosity of, it's like the biggest resource plan in Xcel's history. We talked about this several months ago when the hearings were being heard on this, but that's a multi-billion-dollar resource plan that is still forthcoming. So, I just don't want people to be under the illusion that this is the big ticket item that we're watching. We still have far more in the hopper at the PUC, and billions and billions of dollars more that are likely going to be invested by Xcel. Some of it, for honest reasons, because we are experiencing load growth, but some of it also to meet the state's 80% decarbonization by 2030 targets. And so this is just a small drop in the bucket of what we can expect going forward. One more thing on Eric Blank, I do want to give him another bit of kudos in this, because it seems like he was able to get some influence, at least on some approval for natural gas in this. So natural gas was by no means the focal point of this, obviously, because this was all about tax credits, and natural gas doesn't get the PTC and the ITC. But they were able to approve a 200 megawatt peaker plant, natural gas, which Blank says it's clear we need dispatchable resources in the Denver metro area, he said, in urging the commission to adopt, approving that plan. And he was also able to get them to extend the retirement date of, I think, 4, if I'm reading this correctly, 4 different turbines in the Colorado area, in Fruita, Fort Lupton 1 and 2, and Valmont in Boulder County. And he says it's too risky to wait for the bulk of the projects to go through that just transition solicitation that I just mentioned. So he's clearly thinking about reliability and willing to consider natural gas, and good on him for at least getting some firm dispatchable capacity rammed through this, as everything else goes to chasing intermittent resources via tax credits.
I want to say one thing about that. Again, thank you, Chairman Blank, to your point. But if you say that it's clear that he says the Denver metro area needs dispatchable power. What about the Greeley area? What about the Grand Junction area? Do we not deserve or need dispatchable power, or are we just toss aside? It's like, it's okay if you don't power those people, but clearly in the Denver metro area, we need dispatchable power. Or the other thing with this, if that is true today, it will be true in 2030, it's going to be true in 2035, and it's going to be true in 2040. So I'm looking at it, he's like, I hope this isn't something we regret. And it's clear we need dispatchable power. If those two things are true, and I would say you and I believe that, and as do a bunch of other people, it's not like we're the only two, but if that's true, and you have that from the chairman of the Public Utilities Commission in the state of Colorado, then we need to rethink where we're headed. The man who is in charge of the commission that approves this is raising every red flag he can without literally setting himself on fire. To say we need to rethink this. I don't know how much more it's going to take. So when this anticipated bill drops, about moving the goalpost from 100% renewable by 2050 to 98% by 2040. I hope that these comments come back. Well, they will, because I'll go down and testify and make sure that they're in there. But that somebody actually listens to it, listens to the person who's in charge of the commission that has to make these decisions. They have to do what the legislature says, but it's this is horrific news for ratepayers. Because, by the way, it also doesn't include transmission lines. There's no transmission in there either.
Oh, yeah.
We still have to get this stuff to homes, to the 90,000 homes that Mark Jaffe says 1 gigawatt can power.
Yeah. Yeah, those billions of dollars, don't worry, ratepayers, those billions of dollars are still coming too. So get ready for that as well as all of these resource plans. I think this dovetails quite nicely also with I think it was our last episode where we talked about Winter Storm Fern and how much fossil fuels, in particular natural gas, at one point was 2/3 of the daily generation mix, keeping the lights on. So yeah, I would say it's a little bit of an understatement from Chair Blank that I think we need dispatchable resources in Colorado. But as we're coming up on time here, Amy, do you have any takeaways for our listeners?
Yeah, of course, I have 3. So one is this rush to get federal subsidies is, I'll call it selective federalism and irresponsible governance for sure. It's a wealth transfer from poorer states or lower income states to Colorado, which is a high income state. It's repulsive on every single level, especially when you consider all of the spending, the federal level. So I don't want to hear a thing from anyone on the left who talks about spending by Republicans when what they want to do with this and this rush to get those federal dollars, it's repulsive and it's irresponsible. At least from my perspective. And at the same time, these are the same people that are mad that Secretary Wright used a 202 order to keep Craig Power open for 90 days. And it's not necessarily operational, just said, keep it open just for 90 days, keep it open. And these are the feds can't come in here and do that. But at the same time, they're like, hurry, so we can get all the federal money we can get. Let's just keep taking it. We want it. I mean, the selective federalism. So this whole thing about federal government, reliance on it, selective federalism, just stop. That's number one. Number 2 is this is going to cost ratepayers a fortune. And we don't know what the exact number is going to be, but it will be. You can expect to see, I don't think it's out of the stretch to see 35 cent kilowatt hour electric rates within the next decade. I think we should be planning for this. It's going to be wildly expensive. And 3, as we always say, firm your own grid. Listen, you got to take care of yourself because, as you know, the government's not going to help you. The legislature is not going to help you. The P.U.C. is not going to help you. So get your own generator. And with that, we have a cool contest going on. And Jake, I'll let you tell about the contest while I pull up some of the comments that we found. Yeah,
that's right. So folks that are watching this on YouTube probably see this giant box next to me as I'm talking on the show. And that's our Predator super quiet inverter generator that we want to help bouncing off of Amy's third takeaway, help you firm your own grid and get a generator. And to do that, we're holding a little contest, kind of a little bit of fun that we're having on the show. And that is starting at the beginning of the year. So all the shows that we've released since the new year, running through the end of the legislative session. So sometime in May, maybe June, we want to see folks, we're going to pull comments from what viewers leave under our videos on YouTube. And if it's a comment that's pithy or humorous or sincere or, just the comments that we really like, we're going to start collecting those as we go along here. And we're going to hand select the ones that we like the most. We're eventually we'll share some of them on the show here. And eventually we're going to whittle them down. And at the end of that, the legislative session, that stretch, we're going to really narrow them down to a final selection. And we're going to let folks vote on what they think is the best comment. And whoever wins that final vote, will get to take this bad boy home and firm their own grid. And I think we have some of the first comments that we've selected that we want to share on the show today.
Yeah. So this one, is from our show on Craig Power. Speaking of Craig, which we've talked about here on this show. So I've got a few here that are just kind of fun. Here's one, and it's from, looks like a guy who identifies Mark McKenzie, 5110. Until recently, I had an association in my mind between coal-fired energy plants and terrible pollution. I encourage fellow Coloradans who have felt this way to really rethink this. The Craig Unit number 2 plant is indeed very clean, and I would say, in terms of mines, that those should be county-level decisions. It's not hyperbole to say that it's not just Craig, but all of Moffat County are at serious risk. Policy issues need to be broken apart to a sufficient level that specific logical decision can be made about them. While I passionately believe in taking care of our environment, we cannot glop all environmental related questions into one big basket. And there's more to it, but that's part of it. And by the way, they don't all have to be that long. Here's one. I moved to Craig. This is from a guy named Ted. I moved to Craig in 1975. First operator hired in Kalawayo, which is one of the mines there. There was nothing here, nothing but a ranch town. The mines and Craig Station are what made it what it is today. John's right, meaning we had that was our former county commissioner who was on. When they go, not only will Craig lose tax revenue, but also Colorado. Nice seeing you again, John. Keep fighting. And then here's another one. My dad always told me never quit a job until you have another one lined up to start the next day. Those that would want to close existing power plants with no economical replacement are cutting off their nose to spite their face. And they have no idea how inflation works. I love this. Or return on investment. And I don't think he's wrong on that one. And then I think I had one more if I can find it here. Maybe I can't. Oh, here, I kind of like this one. Don't they mine clean coal up there? And then he goes, what about, sun mines? And then question mark, which I just thought was just kind of funny. So that was from Tom. So those are just a few. Listen, we're pulling them all the time. We're going to, and we'll keep sharing them with you. You all keep dropping notes or comments in the show notes or right underneath the show notes. Keep dropping comments in there and we'll go through them and we'll share some with you periodically. It's kind of fun.
Yep. And at the end of the day, you get a chance to help farm your own grid. So it's a win-win, I think. But that does it for us on another episode here of PowerGab. If folks like what they saw, they can head over to powergab.org to check out our entire back catalog. We produce new episodes every single week. We're also available wherever you get your audio-only shows, whether that's Spotify or Apple Podcast. And if you'd like to reach out to us to suggest future show topics or suggest guests that you'd like to see us interview here on the show, you can send that our way at info@powergab.org. We always love hearing from you guys. And until next week, we'll see you.